On October the 10th, in 2 days' time, Harold Pinter celebrates his 70th birthday. As a tribute to one of Britain's greatest playwrights of the 20th century, Radio 3 is broadcasting now, for the first time on radio, Moonlight, which had its theatre premiere in 1993. In this new production, Harold Pinter himself plays Andy, with Sarah Kestelman as Belle. Moonlight by Harold Pinter.
I can't sleep. There's no moon. It's so dark. I think I'll go downstairs and walk about. I won't make a noise. I'll be very quiet. Nobody will hear me. It's so dark, and I know everything is more silent when it's dark. But I don't want anyone to know I'm moving about in the night. I don't want to wake my father and mother. They're so tired. They have given so much of their life for me and for my brothers. All their life, in fact. All their energies and all their love. They need to sleep in peace and wake up rested. I must see that this happens. It is my task, because I know that when they look at me, they see that I am all they have left of their life.
Where are the boys? Have you found them?
I'm trying.
You've been trying for weeks and failing. It's enough to make the cat laugh. Do we have a cat?
We do.
Is it laughing?
Fit to bust.
What at? Me, I suppose.
Why would your own dear cat laugh at you? That cat who was your own darling kitten when she was young, and so were you. That cat you have so dandled and patted and petted and loved. Why should she, how could she laugh at her master? It's not remotely credible.
But she's laughing at someone.
She's laughing at me. At my ineptitude. At my failure to find the boys. At my failure to bring the boys to their father's deathbed.
Well, that's more like it. You are the proper target for a cat's derision. And how I loved you. What a wonderful woman you were. You had such a great heart. You still have, of course. I can hear it from here. Banging away.
Do you feel anything? What do you feel? Do you feel hot? Or cold? Or both? What do you feel? Do you feel cold in your legs? Or hot? What about your fingers? What are they? Are they cold? Or hot? Or neither cold nor hot?
Is this a joke? My God, she's taking the piss out of me. My own wife on my deathbed. She's as bad as that fucking cat.
Perhaps it's my convent school education, but the term taking the piss does leave me somewhat nonplussed.
Nonplussed? You've never been nonplussed in the whole of your voracious, lascivious, libidinous life.
You may be dying, but that doesn't mean you have to be totally ridiculous.
Well, why am I dying anyway? I've never harmed a soul. You don't die if you're good. You die if you're bad.
We girls were certainly aware of the verb to piss. Oh, yes, in the sixth form, certainly. I piss, you piss, she pisses, etc.
We girls. Christ.
The term taking the piss, however, was not known to us.
It means mockery. It means to mock. It means mockery, mockery, mockery.
Really? How odd. Is there a rational explanation to this?
Rationality went down the drain donkeys years ago and hasn't been seen since. All that famous rationality of yours is swimming about in waste disposal turdology. It's burping and farting away in the cesspit forever and ever. That's destiny speaking, sweetheart. That was always the destiny of your famous rational intelligence. To choke to death in sour cream and pig swill.
Oh, do calm down, for goodness sake.
Why? Why? What do you mean?
Brother. And how is my little brother?
Cheerful, though gloomy, uneasily poised.
All will be well, and all manner of things shall be well.
What kind of holiday are you giving me this year? Art or the beach?
I would think a man of your calibre needs a bit of both.
Or nothing of either?
It's very important to keep your pecker up.
How far up?
Well, for example, how high is a Chinaman?
Quite?
Exactly.
You were writing poems when you were a mere child, isn't that right?
I was writing poems before I could read.
Listen, I happen to know you were writing poems before you could speak.
Listen, I was writing poems before I was born.
So you would say you were the real thing?
The authentic article.
Never knowingly undersold?
Precisely.
Listen, I've been thinking about the whole caboodle. I'll tell you what we need. We need capital.
I've got it.
You've got it?
I've got it.
Where did you find it?
Divine right.
Christ.
Exactly.
You're joking.
No, my father weighed it all up carefully the day I was born.
Oh, your father. Was he the one who was sleeping with your mother?
He weighed it all up. He weighed up all the pros and cons, and then, without further ado, he called a meeting. He called a meeting of the trustees of his estate, you see, to discuss all these pros and cons. My father was a very thorough man. He invariably brought the meetings in on time and under budget, and he always kept a weather eye open for blasphemy, gluttony and buggery.
He was a truly critical force.
He was not in it for pleasure or glory. Let me make that quite clear. Applause came not his way, nor did he seek it. Gratitude came not his way, nor did he seek it. Masturbation came not his way, nor did he seek it. I'm sorry, I meant approbation came not his way.
Oh, didn't it really?
Nor did he seek it. I'd like to apologise for what I can only describe as a lapse in concentration.
It can happen to anybody.
My father adhered strictly to the rule of law.
Which is not a very long way from the rule of thumb.
Not as the crow flies, no.
But the trustees, I take it, could not by any stretch of the imagination be described as a particularly motley crew?
Neither motley nor random. They were kept, however, under strict and implacable scrutiny. They were allowed to go to the lavatory just 1.5 times a session. They evacuated to a time clock.
And the motion was carried?
The motion was carried, 9 votes to 4, Jorrocks abstaining.
Not a pretty sight by the sound of it.
The vicar stood up. He said that it was a very unusual thing, a truly rare and unusual thing for a man in the prime of his life to leave without codicil or reservation his personal fortune to his newborn son the very day of that baby's birth, before the boy had had a chance to say a few words, or aspire to the unknowable, or cut for partners, or cajole the japonica, or tickle his arse with a feather.
Whose arse?
It was an act, went on the vicar, which for sheer, undaunted farsightedness, unflinching moral resolve, stern intellectual vision, classic philosophical detachment, passionate religious fervour, profound emotional intensity, blood-tingling spiritual ardour, spellbinding metaphysical chutzpah, stood alone.
Tantamount to a backflip in the lotus position.
It was an act, went on the vicar, without a vestige of lust, but with any amount of bucketfuls of lustre.
So the vicar was impressed.
The only one of the trustees not impressed was my Uncle Rufus.
Now you're telling me you had an uncle called Rufus. Is that what you're telling me?
Uncle Rufus was not impressed.
Why not? Do I know the answer? I think I do. I think I do. Do I?
I think you do.
I think so too. I think I do.
I think so too.
The answer is that your father was just a little bit short of a few Krugerrands.
He'd run out of pesetas in a pretty spectacular fashion.
He had, only a few nights before, dropped a packet on the pier at Bognor Regis.
Fishing for tiddlers.
His casino life had long been a lost horizon.
The silver pail was empty.
As was the gold.
Nary an emerald.
Nary a gem.
Gemless in Wall Street.
To the bank with fuck all.
Yes, it must and will be said. The speech my father gave at that trustees' meeting on that wonderfully soft summer morning in the Cotswolds all those years ago was the speech either of a mountebank, a child, a shyster, a fool, a villain...
Or a saint.
Do you remember me? I was your mother's best friend. You're both so tall. I remember you when you were little boys. And Bridget, of course. I once took you all to the zoo with your father. We had tea. Do you remember? I used to come to tea with your mother. We drank so much tea in those days. My 3 are all in terribly good form. Sarah's doing marvellously well, and Lucian's thriving at the consulate. And as for Susanna, oh, there's no stopping her. But don't you remember the word games we all used to play? Then we'd walk across the common. That's where we met Rafe. He was refereeing a football match. He did it, oh, I don't know, with such aplomb, such command. Your mother and I were so impressed. He was always ahead of the game. He knew where the ball was going before it was kicked. Osmosis. I think that's the word. He's still as osmotic as anyone I've ever come across. Much more so, of course. Most people have no osmotic quality whatsoever. But, of course, in those days, I won't deny it, I had a great affection for your father. So had your mother. For your father. Your father possessed little in the way of osmosis, but nor did he hide his blushes under a barrel. I mean, he wasn't a pretender. He didn't waste precious time. And how he danced. Oh, how he danced. One of the great waltzers. An elegance and grace long gone. A firmness and authority so seldom encountered. And he looked you directly in the eye, unwavering, as he swirled you across the floor. A rare gift. But I was young in those days. So was your mother. Oh, your mother was marvellously young and quickening every moment. I must say, particularly when I saw your mother being swirled across the floor by your father, felt buds breaking out all over the place. I thought I'd go mad.
I'll tell you something about me. I sweated over a hot desk all my working life, and nobody ever found a flaw in my working procedures. Nobody ever uncovered the slightest hint of negligence or misdemeanor. Never. I was an inspiration to others. I inspired the young men and women down from here and down from there. I inspired them to put their shoulders to the wheel and their noses to the grindstone, and to keep faith at all costs with the structure which, after all, ensured the ordered government of all our lives, which took perfect care of us, which held us to its bosom, as it were. I was a first-class civil servant. I was admired and respected. I do not say I was loved. I didn't want to be loved. Love is an attribute no civil servant worth his salt would give house room to. It's redundant, an excrescence. No, I'll tell you what I was. I was an envied and feared force in the temples of the just.
But you never swore in the office.
I would never use obscene language in the office, certainly not. I kept my obscene language for the home, where it belongs. Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. I bumped into Maria the other day, the day before I was stricken. She invited me back to her flat for a slice of plum duff. I said to her, "If you have thighs, prepare to bear them now."
Yes, you always entertained a healthy lust for her.
A healthy lust, do you think so?
And she for you.
Has that been the whisper along the white sands of the blue Caribbean? I'm dying. Am I dying?
If you were dying, you'd be dead.
How do you work that out?
You'd be dead if you were dying.
I sometimes think I'm married to a raving lunatic. But I'm always prepared to look on the sunny side of things. You mean I'll see spring again? I'll see another spring? All the paraphernalia of flowers?
What a lovely use of language. You know, you've never used language in such a way before. You've never said such a thing before.
Oh, so what? I've said other things, haven't I? Plenty of other things, all my life. All my life I've been saying plenty of other things.
Yes, it's quite true that all your life, in all your personal and social attachments, the language you employed was mainly coarse, crude, vacuous, puerile, obscene, and brutal to a degree. Most people were ready to vomit after no more than 10 minutes in your company. But this is not to say that beneath this vicious, some would say demented exterior, there did not exist a delicate, even poetic sensibility. The sensibility of a young horse in the golden age, in the golden past of our forefathers.
Anyway, admit it. You always entertained a healthy lust for Maria yourself, and she for you. But let me make something quite clear. I was never jealous. I was not jealous then, nor am I jealous now.
Why should you be jealous? She was your mistress throughout the early and lovely days of our marriage.
She must have reminded me of you. The past is a mist. Once, I remember this, once a woman walked towards me across a darkening room.
That was me.
You.
I'm walking slowly in a dense jungle. But I'm not suffocating. I can breathe. That is because I can see the sky through the leaves. I'm surrounded by flowers. Hibiscus, oleander, bougainvillea, jacaranda. The turf under my feet is soft. I crossed so many fierce landscapes to get here. Thorns, stones, stinging nettles, barbed wire, skeletons of men and women in ditches. There was no hiding there. There was no yielding. There was no solace, no shelter. But here there is shelter. I can hide. I am hidden. The flowers surround me, but they don't imprison me. I am free. Hidden but free. I'm a captive no longer. I'm lost no longer. No one can find me or see me. I can be seen only by the eyes of the jungle, eyes in the leaves. But they don't want to harm me. There's a smell of burning, a velvet odour, very deep. An echo like a bell. No one in the world can find me.
What did you say your name was? I've made a note of it somewhere.
Macpherson.
That's funny. I thought it was Gonzales. I would be right in saying you were born in Tooting Common.
I came here at your urgent request. You wanted to consult me?
Did I go that far?
When I say you, of course, I don't mean you. I mean they.
You mean Kellaway?
Kellaway? I don't know Kellaway.
You don't?
Yours was the name they gave me.
What name was that?
Saunders.
Oh, quite.
They didn't mention Kellaway.
When you say they, I take it you don't mean they.
I mean a man called Sims.
Jim Sims?
No.
Well, if it isn't Jim Sims, I can't imagine what Sims you can possibly be talking about.
That's no skin off my nose.
I fervently hope you're right. Oh, by the way, Manning's popping in to see you in a few minutes.
Manning?
Yes, just to say hello. He can't stay long. He's on his way to Huddersfield.
Manning?
Huddersfield, yes.
I don't know any Manning.
I know you don't. That's why he's popping in to see you.
Now, look here. I think this is getting a bit out of court. First Kellaway, now Manning. Two men I have not only never met, but have never even heard of. I'm going to have to take this back to my people, I'm afraid. I'll have to get a further briefing on this.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Of course, you must know Manning by his other name.
What's that?
Rawlings.
I know Rawlings.
I had no right to call him Manning.
Not if he's the Rawlings I know.
He is the Rawlings you know.
Well, this quite clearly brings us straight back to Kellaway. What's Kellaway's other name?
Saunders.
But that's your name.
Were you keen on the game of soccer when you were lads, you boys? Probably not. Probably thinking of other things. Kissing girls, foreign literature, snooker. I know the form. I can tell by the complexion. I can tell by the stance. I can tell by the way a man holds himself whether he has an outdoor disposition or not. Your father could never be described as a natural athlete, not by a long chalk. The man was a thinker. Well, there's a place in this world for thinking. I certainly wouldn't argue with that. The trouble with so much thinking, though, or with that which calls itself thinking, is that it's like farting Annie Laurie down a keyhole. It's a waste of your time and mine. What do you think this thinking is pretending to do, eh? It's pretending to make things clear, you see. It's pretending to clarify things. What's it really doing? Eh? What do you think? I'll tell you. It's confusing you. It's blinding you. It's sending the mind into a spin. It's making you dizzy. It's making you so dizzy that by the end of the day, you don't know whether you're on your arse or your elbow. You don't know whether you're coming or going. I've always been a pretty vigorous man myself. I had a seafaring background. I was the captain of a lugger. The boatswain's name was Ripper. But after years at sea, I decided to give the arts a chance, generally. I had tried a bit of amateur refereeing, but didn't work out. But I had a natural talent for acting, and I also played the piano, and I could paint. But I should have been an architect. That's where the money is. It was your mother and father woke me up to poetry and art. They changed my life. And then, of course, I married my wife. A fine woman, but demanding. She was looking for fibre and guts. Her eyes were black and appalling. I dropped dead at her feet.
It was all go at that time. Love, football, the arts, the occasional pint. Mind you, I preferred a fruity white wine, but you couldn't actually say that in those days.
Why can't I come?
I've told you. There isn't room in the car.
Oh, take him with you.
There's no room in the car. It's not my car. I'm just a passenger. I'm lucky to get a lift myself.
But if I can't come with you, what am I going to do all night? I'll have to stay here with her.
Oh, God, I wish you'd take him with you. Otherwise, I'll have to stay here with him.
Well, you are related.
That's the trouble.
You're related to him too.
Yes, but once I got to this gig, I'd lose him. We wouldn't see each other again. He's merely a method of transport. Emotional family allegiances don't come into it.
Oh, well, go with him then.
I told you he can't. There isn't any room in the car. It's not my car. I haven't got a car.
That's what's so tragic about this whole business. If you had a car, none of this would be taking place.
Look, I don't want him to stay here with me, I can assure you. I actually want to be alone.
Greta Garbo? You're going to be a film star when you grow up?
Oh, shut up. You know what I'm going to be.
What?
A physiotherapist.
You'll be a great physiotherapist.
You'll have to play very soothing music so her patients won't notice their suffering.
I did your neck the other day and you didn't complain.
That's true.
You had a spasm and I released it.
That's true.
You didn't complain then.
I'm not complaining now. I think you're wonderful. I know you're wonderful. And you make a wonderful physiotherapist. But I still want to get to this gig in Amersham. Doesn't mean I don't think you're wonderful.
Oh, go to Amersham, please. You don't think I need anyone to stay with me, do you? I'm not a child. Anyway, I'm reading this book.
You don't want to be all on your own.
I do want to be all on my own. I want to read this book.
I don't even have a book. I mean, I have books, but they're all absolutely unreadable.
Well, I'm off to Amersham.
What about me?
Oh, for God's sake, take him with you to Amersham or don't take him with you to Amersham or shut up. Both of you.
Well, I'm off to Amersham.
I'm giving you a mushroom omelette today and a little green salad and an apple.
How kind you are. I'd be lost without you. It's true, I'd flounder without you. I'd fall apart. Well, I'm falling apart as it is, but if I didn't have you, I'd stand no chance.
You're not a bad man. You're just what we used to call a loudmouth. You can't help it. It's your nature. If you only kept your mouth shut more of the time, life with you might just be tolerable.
Allow me to kiss your hand. I owe you everything. I've been meaning to ask you, what are you making there? A winding sheet? Are you going to wrap me up in it when I conk out? You'd better get a move on. I'm going fast. Where are they? 2 sons, absent, indifferent. Their father dying.
They were good boys. I've been thinking of how they used to help me with the washing up and the drying. Clearing of the table, the washing up, the drying. Do you remember?
You mean in the twilight? The soft light falling through the kitchen window? The bell ringing for evensong in the pub round the corner? They were bastards, both of them. Always. Do you remember the time I asked Jake to clean out the broom cupboard? Well, I told him, I admitted I didn't ask him, I told him that it was bloody filthy and that he hadn't lifted a little finger all week. Nor had the other one. Lazy idle layabouts. Anyway, all I did was to ask him, quite politely, to clean out the bloody broom cupboard. His defiance. Do you remember the way he looked at me? His defiance. And look at them now. What are they now? A sponging, parasitical pair of ponces. Sucking the tit of the state. Sucking the tit of the state. And I bet you feed them a few weekly rupees from your little money books, don't you? Because they always loved their loving mother. They helped her with the washing up. I've got to stretch my legs. Go over the common, watch a game of football, rain or shine. What was the name of that old chum of mine? Used to referee amateur games every weekend, on the common. Charming bloke. They treated him like shit, a subject of scorn. No decision he ever made was adhered to or respected. They shouted at him, they screamed at him, they called him every kind of prick. I used to watch in horror from the touchline. I'll always remember his impotent whistle. It blows down to me through the ages, damp and forlorn. What was his name? And now I'm dying and he's probably dead.
He's not dead.
Why not? What was his name?
Rafe.
Rafe? Rafe? Could that be possible? Well, even if his name was Rafe, he was still the most sensitive and intelligent of men, my oldest friend. But pathologically idiosyncratic, if he was anything. He was reliable enough when he was sitting down, but you never knew where you were with him when he was standing up. I mean, when he was on the move, when you were walking down the street with him. He was a reticent man, you see. He said little, but he was always thinking. And the trouble was, his stride would keep pace with his thoughts. If he was thinking slowly, he'd walk as if he was wading through mud or crawling out of a pot of apricot jam. If he was thinking quickly, he walked like grease lightning. You couldn't keep up with him. You were on your knees in the gutter while he was over the horizon in a flash. I always had a lot of sympathy for his sexual partner, whoever she may have been. I mean to say, 1 minute he'd be berserk, up to 1,000 revolutions a second, and the next he'd be grinding to the most appalling and deadly halt. He was his own natural handbrake. Poor girl. There must be easier ways of making ends meet. Anyway, leaving him aside, if you don't mind, for a few minutes, where is Mariah? Why isn't she here? I can't die without her.
Oh, of course you can. And you will.
But think of our past. We were all so close. Think of the months I betrayed you with her. How can she forget? Think of the wonder of it. I betrayed you with your own girlfriend. She betrayed you with your husband. And she betrayed her own husband and me with you. She broke every record in sight. She was a genius and a great fuck.
She was a very charming and attractive woman.
Then why isn't she here? She loved me. Not to mention you. Why isn't she here to console you in your grief?
She's probably forgotten your dying, if she ever remembered.
What? What? I had her in our bedroom, by the way, once or twice. On our bed. I was a man at the time. You probably had her in the same place, of course. In our bedroom, on our bed.
I don't have people.
You've had me.
Oh, you? Oh, yes. I can still have you.
What do you mean? Are you threatening me? What do you have in mind, assault? Are you proposing to have me here and now, without further ado? Would it be out of order to remind you that I'm on my deathbed? Or is that a solecism? What's your plan? To kill me in the act, like a praying mantis? How much sexual juice does a corpse retain? And for how long, for Christ's sake? The truth is, I'm basically innocent. I know little of women. But I've heard dread tales. Mainly from my old mate, the referee. But they were probably all fantasy and fabrication, bearing no relation whatsoever to reality.
Oh, do you think so? Do you really think so?
The meeting is scheduled for 6:30. Bellamy in the chair, Pratt, Hawkeye, Belcher and Rausch, Horsefall attending. Lieutenant Colonel Silvio Durangeri will speak off the record at 7:15 precisely.
But Horsefall will be attending.
No, Horsefall's always steady on parade. Apart from that, I've done the placement myself.
What are you, the permanent secretary?
Indeed I am. Indeed I am.
Funny Hawkeye and Rausch being at the same table. Did you mention Bigsby?
Why, did Hawkeye tangle with Rausch at Bromley? No, I didn't mention Bigsby.
They were daggers drawn at Eastbourne.
What, during the Buckminster hierarchy?
Buckminster? I never mentioned Buckminster.
You mentioned Bigsby.
You're not telling me that Bigsby has anything to do with Buckminster? Or that Buckminster and Bigsby...
I'm telling you nothing of the sort. Buckminster and Bigsby are two quite different people.
That's always been my firm conviction.
Well, thank goodness we can agree about something.
I've never thought we were all that far apart.
You mean where it matters most?
Quite. Tell me more about Belcher.
Belcher? Who's Belcher? Oh, Belcher. Sorry, I thought for a moment you were confusing Belcher with Bellamy. Because of the bees. You follow me?
Any confusion that exists in that area rests entirely in you, old chap.
That's a bit blunt, isn't it? You're always so blunt. After all, I've got a steady job here, which is more than can be said for you.
Listen, son. I've come a long way down here to attend a series of highly confidential meetings in which my participation is seen to be a central factor. I've come a very long way, and the people I left to man the bloody fort made quite clear to me a number of their very weighty misgivings. But I insisted, and here I am. I want to see Bellamy. I want to see Belcher. I need to see Rausch. Pratt is a Pratt, but Hawkeye is crucial. Frustrate any of this and you'll regret it.
I can only hope Lieutenant Colonel Silvio Durangeri won't find you as offensive as I do. He's an incredibly violent person.
I know Silvio.
Know him? What do you mean?
We were together in Torquay.
Oh, I see. What about Horsefall?
Horsefall belongs to you.
Where is she? Of all the people in the world, I know she'd want to be with me now, because she, I know, remembers everything. How I cuddled her and sang to her, how I kept her nightmares from her, how she fell asleep in my arms.
Please, oh, please.
Is she bringing my grandchildren to see me? Is she? To catch their last look of me? To receive my blessing? Poor little buggers. Their eyes so wide, so blue, so black. Poor tots, tiny totlets. Poor little tiny totlets. To lose their granddad at the height of his powers, when he was about to stumble upon new reserves of spiritual zest, when the door was about to open on new, ever-widening and ever-lengthening horizons.
But, darling, death will be your new horizon.
What?
Death is your new horizon.
That may be. But the big question is, will I cross it as I die, or after I'm dead? Or perhaps I won't cross it at all. Perhaps I'll just stay stuck in the middle of the horizon. In which case, can I see over it? Can I see to the other side? Or is the horizon endless? And what's the weather like? Is it uncertain with showers, or sunny with fog patches? Or unceasing moonlight with no cloud? Or pitch black forever and ever? You may say you haven't the faintest fucking idea, and you would be right. But personally, I don't believe it's going to be pitch black forever, because if it's pitch black forever, what would have been the point of going through all these enervating charades in the first place? There must be a loophole. The only trouble is I can't find it. If only I could find it, I would crawl through it and meet myself coming back, like screaming with fright at the sight of a stranger, only to find you looking into a mirror. But what if I cross this horizon before my grandchildren get here? They won't know where I am. What will they say? Will you ever tell me? Will you ever tell me what they say? They'll cry or they won't, a sorrow too deep for tears. But they're only babies. What can they know about death?
Oh, the really little ones, I think, do know something about death. They know more about death than we do. We've forgotten death, but they haven't forgotten it. They remember it. Because some of them, those who were really very young, remember the moment before their life began. It's not such a long time ago for them, you see. And the moment before their life began, they were, of course, dead.
Really?
Of course.
Shit.
Shit. Why not? No fags, no fucks. Bollocks to the lot of them. I'll have a slug anyway. Bollocks to the lot of them and bugger them all. Ah, God, that's the ticket. Just the job. Bollocks to the lot of them. Oh, darling. Ah, my darling.
How's your water consumption these days?
I've given all that up.
Really?
Oh, yes. I've decided to eschew the path of purity and abstention and take up a proper theology. From now on, it's the Michelin Guide and the Orient Express for me, that kind of thing.
I once lived the life of Riley myself.
What was he like?
I never met him personally, but I became a very, very close friend of the woman he ran away with.
I bet she taught you a thing or two.
She taught me nothing she hadn't learned herself at the feet of the master.
Wasn't Riley known under his other hat as the Sheikh of Araby?
That's him. His mother was one of the all-time great belly dancers, and his father was one of the last of the great village elders.
A marvellous people.
A proud people, too.
Watchful.
Wary.
Touchy.
Bristly.
Vengeful.
Absolutely ferocious, to be quite frank.
Kick you in the balls as soon as look at you.
But you know what made them the men they were?
What?
They drank water. Sheer, cold, sparkling mountain water.
And this made men of them?
And gods.
Oh, I'll have some then. I've always wanted to be a god.
Drink up.
Listen, can I ask you a very personal question? Do you think my nerve is going? Do you think my nerve is on the blink?
I'm going to need a second opinion.
We haven't had the first one yet.
No, the second is always the one that counts. Any fool knows that. But I've got another suggestion.
What's that?
What about a walk around the block?
Oh, no, I'm much happier in bed. Staying in bed suits me. I'd be very unhappy to get out of bed and go out and meet strangers and all that kind of thing. I'd really much prefer to stay in my bed. Bridget would understand. I was her brother. She understood me. She always understood my feelings.
She understood me too. She understood me too.
Listen, I've got a funny feeling my equilibrium's in tatters.
Oh, really? Well, they can prove these things scientifically now, you know. I beg you to remember that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They got things like light meters now.
Light meters?
Oh, yeah, they can test the quality of light down to a fraction of a centimetre, even if it's pitch dark.
They can find whatever light is left in the dark?
They can find it, yes. They can locate it. Then they place it in a little box, they wrap it up and tie a ribbon round it, and you get it tax-free, as a reward for all your labour and faith and all the concern and care for others you have demonstrated so eloquently for so long.
And will it serve me as a light at the end of the tunnel?
It will serve you as a torch, as a personal light eternal.
Fantastic.
This is what we can do for you.
Who?
Society.
Listen, I'd like, if you don't mind, to take you back to the remarks you were making earlier about your father and about your inheritance, which was not perhaps quite what it purported to be, which was not, shall we say, exactly the bona fide gold-plated testament deep-seated rumour had reckoned, but which was, in fact, according to information we now possess, in the lowest category of Ruritanian fantasy.
Yes, but wait a minute. What exactly is being said here about my dad? What is being said? What is this? What it demonstrably is not is a dissertation upon the defeated or a lament for the lost, is it? No, I'll tell you what it is. It is an atrociously biased and illegitimate onslaught on the weak and vertiginous. Do you follow me? So what is this? I am entitled to ask, what is being said? What is being said here? What is it that is being said here? Or there, for that matter? I ask this question. In other words, I'm asking this question. Is being said? All his life, my father has been subjected to hatred and vituperation. He has been, from time immemorial, pursued and persecuted by a malignant force which until this day has remained shadowy, a force resisting definition or classification. What is this force and what is its bent? You will answer that question, not I. You will, in the calm and ease which will come to you, as assuredly it will, in due course, before the last race is run, answer that question, not I. I will say only this. I contend that you subject to your scorn a man who was, and here I pray for your understanding, an innocent bystander to his own nausea. At the age of 3, that man was already at the end of his tether. No wonder he yearned to leave to his loving son the legacy of all that was best and most valuable of his life and death. He loved me, and one day I shall love him. I shall love him and be happy to pay the full price of that love.
Which is the price of death.
The price of death, yes.
Than which there is no greater price.
And which?
Than which? Death.
Which is the price of love.
A great, great price.
A great and deadly price.
But strictly in accordance with the will of God.
And the laws of nature.
And common or garden astrological logic.
It's the first axiom.
And the last.
It may well be both tautologous and contradictory.
But it nevertheless constitutes a watertight philosophical proposition which will in the final reckoning be seen to be such.
I believe that to be so, yes. I believe that to be the case. And I'd like to raise a glass to all those we left behind, to all those who fell at the first and all consequent hurdles.
Raising?
Raising.
Let me say this. I knew your father.
You did indeed.
I was close to him.
You were indeed.
Closer to him than you were yourself, perhaps.
It could be argued so. You were indeed his youngest and most favoured son.
Precisely. And so let me say this. He was a man, taken for all in all. I shall not look upon his like again.
You moosh.
Some say, of course, that he was spiritually furtive, politically bankrupt, morally scabrous, and intellectually abject.
They lie.
Certainly he liked to drink.
And could be spasmodically rampant.
On my oath, there's many a maiden will attest to that.
He may have been poetically downtrodden.
But while steeped in introversion, he remained proud and fiery.
And still, I called him Dad.
What was he like in real life, would you say?
A leader of men.
What was the celebrated nickname attached to him by his friends with affection, awe and admiration?
The incumbent. Be at the Black Horse tonight, 7:30 sharp. The incumbent will be there in his corner, buying a few pints for the lads.
They were behind him to a man.
He knew his beer and possessed the classic formula for dealing with troublemakers.
What was that?
A butcher's hook.
Tell me about your mother.
Don't talk dirty to me.
The first time Mariah and I had lunch together in a restaurant, I asked her to order for me. She wore grey, a grey dress. I said, "Please order for me. Please, I'll have whatever you decide. I'd much prefer that." And she took my hand and squeezed it and smiled and ordered for me.
I saw her do it. I saw her. I heard her order for you.
I said, "I'll be really happy to have whatever you decide."
Fish. She decided on fish.
She asked about my girlhood.
The bitch.
I spoke to her in a way I had never spoken to anyone before. I told her of my girlhood. I told her about running on the cliffs with my brothers. I ran so fast, up and down the heather. I was so out of breath, I had to stop. I fell down on the heather, bouncing. They fell down at my side. And all the wind. I told her about the wind and my brothers running after me on the cliff top and falling down at my side. I spoke to her in a way I had never spoken to anyone before. Sometimes it happens, doesn't it? You're speaking to someone, and you suddenly find that you're another person.
Who is?
You are. I don't mean you, I mean me.
I witnessed all this, by the way.
Oh, were you there?
I was spying on you both from a corner table, behind a vase of flowers and the brothers Karamazov.
And then she said women had something men didn't have. They had certain qualities men simply didn't have. I wondered if she was talking about me, but then I realized, of course, she was talking about women in general. But then she looked at me and she said, "You, for example." But I said to myself, men can be beautiful too.
I was there. I heard every word.
Not my thoughts.
I heard your thoughts. I could hear your thoughts. You thought to yourself, men can be beautiful too. But you didn't dare say it. But you did dare think it. Mind you, she thought the same. I know she did. She's the one we both should have married.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think I should have married your friend Rafe.
Rafe? What, Rafe the referee?
Yes.
But he was such a terrible referee. He was such a hopeless referee.
It wasn't the referee I loved.
It was the man. Well, I'll be buggered. It's wonderful. Here I am dying, and she tells me she loved a referee. I could puke. And how I loved you. I'll never forget the earliest and loveliest days of our marriage. You offered your body to me. Here you are, you said one day. Here's my body. Oh, thanks very much, I said. That's very decent of you. What do you want me to do with it? Do what you will, you said. This is going to need a bit of thought, I said. I'll tell you what. Hold on to it for a couple of minutes, will you? Hold on to it while I call a copper.
Rafe had such beautiful manners and such a lovely singing voice. I've never understood why he didn't become a professional tenor. But I think all the travel involved in that kind of life was the problem. There was a story about an old mother, a bewildered aunt, something that tugged at his heart. I never quite knew what to believe.
No, you've got the wrong bloke. My Rafe was pedantic and scholastic, never missed a day at night school, big ears, but little feet, never smiled. One day, though, he did say something. He pulled me into a doorway. He whispered in my ear. Do you know what he said? He said, men had something women simply didn't have. I asked him what it was. But of course, there was no way he was going to answer that question. You know why? because referees are not obliged to answer questions. Referees are the law. They are the law in action. They have a whistle. They blow it. And that whistle is the articulation of God's justice.
How wonderful you both look. It's been ages. We don't live up here anymore, of course.
Got a place in the country.
Years ago.
10 years ago.
We've made friends with so many cows, haven't we, darling? Sarah's doing marvellously well. And Lucian's thriving at the consulate. And as for Susanna, well, there's no stopping her. They all take after Rafe, don't they, darling?
Yeah.
Physically, I mean. Mentally and artistically, they take after me. We have a pretty run-down sort of quite large cottage. Not exactly a chateau. A small lake.
More of a pond.
More of a lake, I'd say.
So you've given up refereeing?
Oh, yes, I gave that up, and I've never regretted it.
You mean it didn't come from the heart?
I wasn't born for it.
Well, you were certainly no bloody good at it.
Tell me, I often think of the past. Do you?
The past? What past? I don't remember any past. What kind of past did you have in mind?
Oh, walking down the Balls Pond Road, for example.
I never went anywhere near the Balls Pond Road. I was a civil servant. I had no past. I remember no past. Nothing ever happened.
Yes, it did.
Oh, it did. Yes, it did. Lots of things happened.
Yes, things happen. Things certainly happened. All sorts of things happened.
All sorts of things happened.
Well, I don't remember any of these things. I remember none of these things.
Well, for instance, your children. Your lovely little girl, Bridget. Oh, little girl. She must be a mother by now.
I've got 3 beautiful grandchildren. Haven't I?
By the way, he's not well. Have you noticed?
Who?
Him.
I hadn't noticed.
What's the trouble?
He's on the way out.
Old Andy? Not a chance. He's always fit as a fiddle. Constitution like an ox.
People like Andy never die. That's the wonderful thing about them.
He looks in the pink.
A bit peaky, perhaps, but in the pink. He'll be running along the towpath in next to no time. Take my word, waltzing away in next to no time.
Before you can say Jack Robinson. Well, we must toddle.
Chinese laundry?
Your father is very ill.
Chinese laundry?
Your father is very ill.
Can I pass you to my colleague?
Chinese laundry?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, my dear madam, absolutely everything matters when it comes down to laundry.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
If you have any serious complaint, can we refer you to our head office?
Do you do dry cleaning?
Hello, can I help you?
Do you do dry cleaning?
Of course we do dry cleaning. Of course we do dry cleaning. What kind of fucking laundry are you if you don't do dry cleaning?
Where are they? My grandchildren. The babies. My daughter. Are they waiting outside? Why do you keep them waiting outside? Why can't they come in? What are they waiting for? What's happening? What is happening?
Are you dying?
Am I?
Don't you know?
No, I don't know. I don't know how it feels. How does it feel?
I don't know.
Why don't they come in? Are they frightened? Tell them not to be frightened.
They're not here. They haven't come.
Tell Bridget not to be frightened. Tell Bridget I don't want her to be frightened.
Pity you weren't at Derangeries Memorial.
I'm afraid I was confined in my bed with a mortal disease.
So I gather. Pity. It was a great do.
Was it?
Oh, yes. Everyone was there.
Really? Who?
Oh, Denton, Alabaster, Tunnicliffe, Quinn.
Really?
Oh, yes. Kelly, Mortlake, Longman, Small.
Good Lord.
Oh, yes. Wetterby, White, Hotchkiss, De Groot, Blackhouse, Garland, Gupty, Tate.
Well, well.
The whole gang. Donovan, Ironside, Wallace, McCool, Ottener, Muggeridge, Carpentier, Finn.
Speeches?
Very moving.
Who spoke?
Oh, Hazeldine, McCormick, Bugatti, Black, Forrester, Galloway, Springfield, Gaunt.
He was much loved.
Well, you loved him yourself, didn't you?
I loved him. I loved him like a father.
Once someone said to me, I think it was my mother or my father. Anyway, they said to me, we've been invited to a party. You've been invited too, but you'll have to come by yourself, alone. You won't have to dress up. You just have to wait until the moon is down. They told me where the party was. It was in a house at the end of a lane. But they told me the party wouldn't begin until the moon had gone down. I got dressed in something old, and I waited for the moon to go down. I waited a long time. Then I set out for the house. The moon was bright and quite still. When I got to the house, it was bathed in moonlight. The house, the glade, the lane were all bathed in moonlight. But the inside of the house was dark, and all the windows were dark. There was no sound. I stood there in the moonlight and waited for the moon to go down.
In Moonlight by Harold Pinter, the part of Andy was played by Harold Pinter, with Sarah Kestelman as Belle, Bridget played Indira Varma, Fred by Harry Burton, and Jake by Douglas Hodge. Jill Johnson was Maria, and John Shrapnel Ralph. The music was by Elizabeth Parker. Moonlight was directed by Janet Whittaker.